Okay. Well, let's try this here. So, this is going to be just a tutorial for Castle of the Winds Part 2. Basically just going to go over all the strats that I personally use, and can get your run probably at least sub 15. Um, so, um, Basically, this one's a little different than a part 1, 2 run. We start on Castle 2. We just open the game and just click New Game. And this gives us a few different options. It starts us at level 7. Um, this okay, we're here 2 7 7. Starts us at level 7. And then it gives us obviously 7 spells to choose from, which means we're usually in a bit better position. We have all the tools that we need to achieve the health underflow bug that we're going to be using. We have the tools that we need to navigate the dungeon, including attack spells, and we also have the chance to get slow monster and phase door, which is not only helpful for movement purposes once we're coming back up, but it's also super helpful for trying to force the shops to give us items with the phase door shopping glitch, which I'll show off. You don't really normally see that one a whole lot in these runs, because it's usually not worth it to do. It takes more time usually than it's worth, but I think at least one of the records that I did in part 2 had it in there, and at least to start off with, it allows you to complete a run. So the goal with this video is to actually complete a run from start to finish, just to kind of show that this can be made safe, I guess. And yeah, that's the goal. So let's just get to it. Start new game. So we choose easy because there's actually not that much difference between these 3 things for a run. The only issue that we have is basically any real issue, I would say, is monsters that do stat damage and monsters that have very, very high damage, like the old dragons, and they don't actually change that much. They don't deal more stat damage. It's just some of the RNG based on their attacks is a little bit stronger or not in your favor. So it doesn't matter really what you use. I've done runs on difficult before, and it's about the same time really. So your character's gender really doesn't matter at all. You can, actually, if you want to see the standard icons, they're there. I use a custom one as long as you have some sort of an image editor that can do 8-bit graphics, which is like impossible to find. I think there's links in this game's some of the forum posts on this game on speedrun.com to some programs that I use that will get you 8-bit support, but it's really difficult normally to make these icons, and there's really not much to them, so don't try to make something too fancy, because it won't let you. There's only about maybe 256 colors available if that. I think it's actually limited to like 64. So anyway, but icon, gender, doesn't matter. So basically, just to go over the stats, dexterity we max out, intelligence we max out as well, mostly because dexterity allows us to have multiple hits, and intelligence is just useful for casting spells. We need a certain amount of intelligence to be able to complete the game successfully, I would say, but it's relatively low depending on how we build the character's equipment. So Constitution, like I said, we're going to be using a health underflow glitch, so we don't really care about Constitution. This is the lowest that it can go, so we put it at the minimum, and then basically all the rest into strength because, well, why not be strong? Why not? There's also no other place to put the stuff, but strength is the lowest priority in my opinion. I'm not sure if anyone else plays it terribly differently either. So I guess we're ready to select the spells. So let's click OK. So what I usually do, I pick the spells so that I will never accidentally hit heal minor wounds and I can leave it on my bar. So what we do is we click magic arrow, which we need. It's part of the component to the health underflow bug that we're going to be displaying. We need phase door just in case the shops don't cooperate. We need light to make our traversal of the dungeon a little easier. Arguably, it kind of makes things a little bit worse, but for speed, you could make a case that it's useful. And then we're going to click detect monsters because this can come in handy for finding Searcher at the end of the game. And now, finally, we're going to complete the health underflow bug requirements and click heal minor wounds. So these last two, there's some options. You don't really need any of these spells. I find it useful to have lightning bolt because a lot of monsters are not immune to lightning in the game. There's plenty of cold-based and fire-based monsters that have a pretty strong resistance to all of your stuff, but not lightning bolt. And in fact, Surtur himself, his resistance, the end boss, I should clarify, has the least amount of resistance to lightning and poison. And we don't have access to poison spells, but there's dragons that do. And there's dragons that breathe poison breath. So take of that what you will. Hopefully we can find a dragon to show you a different way of killing Surtur, but just in case it doesn't spawn correctly for us. That is a possibility. You can kill him using Dragon's Breath if you line him up correctly with a dragon. So let's do Lightning Bolt, and then we're going to do Slow Monster, which at least for me is a requirement. It makes it a lot easier to kill off some pretty high damage and high stat score inflicting monsters. So we're going to click OK. So right when I click OK, time starts. So I'm just going to start a little early, and we're going to get nowhere near this time. I can guarantee it. If I'm explaining things, I'm a lot slower. Sorry. So, all right. Let's clear the throat. Let me take a drink. And let's start. Oh, of course, this always happens. There we go. Okay, so enter can clear any of the dialog boxes that you see, so just slam on the enter key as much as you want, really. It's never going to really get you in trouble unless you're in a bag or something. So we have some starting money. We have about enough money to do some stuff with, but for this run, I'm going to start using the phase door shopping glitch. We need these, and we need the boots of levitation because it helps us avoid most of the traps in the game. The only ones it doesn't really avoid are glyphs, and they're not terribly dangerous in my opinion. So we need intelligence, and most importantly, we are looking for a scroll called map level scroll. That allows us to kind of be cheaty and kind of save scum the scroll. So the idea behind it is we use the scroll, we take a look at the layout of the dungeon, and then we reload from before that we use the scroll, and then we get to, you know, route to the path that was easy, or we can reset the dungeon floor by pressing shift and then 0, or what are those things? The parentheses. So anyways, that's what we're looking for. Most important item to get is the map level scroll. And we have map quadrant, but we don't have map level. So let's just take a look. That battle axe. We might actually want this, just in case there's nothing else. Okay, spell, phase door. So one of the weapon goals that you should try to have is to go after a two-handed sword. Two-handed swords have some pretty unique advantages in this game, in which, at least from my own research, it looks like they have a better chance of critting. Crits happen more often with them for whatever reason. I'm not sure if it's some sort of bug or what, but it tends to happen. So what we're gonna do, we need to save. Now we're going to do the health underflow bug, and how this works is we're going to lower our mana as much as we can until we can get to negative mana, and then we are going to cast Magic Arrow. Magic Arrow in this game has sort of a special property in how no matter how much you use it, it can't kill you. It doesn't do the check for whether or not the character is dead. So as you can see here, our maximum health is now negative, and something about this actually triggers the healing spells in the game to do their math a bit differently. So I can show you right now, our constitution is fairly low. So because that constitution score is so low, hang on. When we rest and we start casting healing spells, our health goes up exponentially. We get 600 per minor heal. Heal minor wounds spell. So because probably of a limitation in the 16-bit game engine, anything beyond 32,000 for whatever reason will basically reverse your health. So it'll start getting into really low numbers, and that's probably because of the integer limits in the 16-bit memory space more than anything else. I believe that 32,000 number is somehow related to that. So let's the one problem with keeping our health at -9, we could do it, is that any monster that would attack our constitution would trigger a death check, basically. And essentially what that would mean is our character would just die outright. So any constitution dealing monster will kill us if we leave our constitution like this. Now, fortunately, there's something we can do. We can continue casting this, and this is one of the fastest ways to do this. There's an all keyboard way to do this as well, but I tend to mess it up. So we're back, and we're gonna rest. Okay, so now as you can see, our constitution is at max, which is exactly what we want. So we want that. Let's go back to, for a second, explaining the constitution thing. So now our constitution is permanently set to this super high number. And the guy that kind of popularized using this in runs, and for all intents and purposes, he kind of discovered this. Silent Sigil is, without him, we probably wouldn't be using it, to be perfectly honest. There were some forum posts that had how to do this, but to be perfectly honest, I would have never thought of it if it weren't for him. If it weren't for seeing it in action and realizing that it could actually save you from dying, yeah, I would have never put 2 and 2 together. I would have thought that it would take much more time than it was worth, but that's just not true. Let's wait for that. Let's grab the gauntlets. So we're gonna try phase door shopping. So the idea behind this is we entered these shops before, and we basically cast the spell phase door inside them. And that, because shops are basically just a weird bag, it causes the shop to act as if, I guess, we were holding the contents, and then suddenly moved and didn't have a bag or didn't have the space requirements to, hold it, and that causes the shop to drop everything. So for whatever reason that happens, now normally we couldn't actually get into these. There's 2 ways to actually get in after you trigger the shop to drop everything. You can use basically a what are those called? Summon monster scroll or summon undead wand to essentially spawn a monster right outside using activate. which technically keeps you in the shop if it's aligned the right way, but oftentimes it's not. So not only do you have to deal with a monster, you can't do it in part 2 easy. It's only part 1, part 2. And then you have to rely on getting lucky about getting the monster scroll and actually having it spawn, or getting the Wand of Undead, which is highly unlikely to get in a part 1 run. So basically, and what I'm trying to say is it's not worth it really to go for that method. It's much easier to basically just try to use Phase Door again to get into one of these shops. And there's some locations that I'm using here that will more often than not get me into certain shops. Like I'm trying to manipulate, there we go. Only unfortunately that one we didn't have anything useful for us, so we didn't trigger the bug. Okay, so hopefully I can get something, at least some money from this. Oh, excellent. Jackpot. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna steal everything that's worth stealing. A lot of places online will tell you that doing this is somehow risky and it'll crash your game. It's really not. The rules are just don't take everything from the shop, and don't do anything terribly stupid in terms of trying to crash the game, because if the shop doesn't have anything in it, a lot of its scripts don't work, and it gets a little weird. Now, I think I should probably just say this as a disclaimer. The game itself kind of seems a bit buggy sometimes, but number one, this is one of the very first games that ever was created for a strictly Windows environment. It was created by Rick Sada starting when he was 16, supposedly, in like 1989. And a lot of the issues and limitations with the game are actually the result of Windows limitations rather than anything else, in my opinion. 16-bit operating systems were kind of a mess to early Windows 16-bit operating systems were kind of a mess to program for, as I take it. And like a lot went into this to make it at all functional, so I don't think we should be too hard on Rick, considering his age and considering what he was working with. But yeah, that's just my my read. Okay, so we really need that map level scroll. So let's try to force it. We are going to cast this spell a bunch until we have no mana, and then we're going to sleep. And as you can see, this changes the day. Our time goes up. So we are going to hopefully get a map quadrant. Alright, hopefully we're gonna get lucky, because we are already way beyond the world record time. And we need this scroll. Let's grab this. Okay. So we are going to sleep some more. We kind of want that, but let's see. We'll buy that one. This is not going very well, but we'll try to finish it out in 30 minutes. Pretty much every run can be... Oh, hello. Yeah, we need this. This will help us complete it relatively quick. Okay. Why? So Transmogrify monster does exactly what it says. It makes a monster into another monster, and it's really useful. It's probably the best spell in the game for dealing with stuff. So yeah, let's just take a look here. Oh, wrong shop. Oh my goodness. Come on, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies. More sleep. Our character is very, very lazy, huh? Map quadrant. Map level. Ah, thank goodness. So, we are going to use Transmogrify monster. We're gonna put restore all mana. And let's just, is there anything else that we might want? Oh, restore all mana. Okay. So, we have everything we need now to do everything. So the last thing that we're going to do, and we're going to save before we do this, is we're going to try a trick called item stacking. And hopefully I can kind of show it off. So if you right click to take a look at the item stats and then click enter, it kind of gets into a weird situation where you're both looking at the stats and trying to move the item. And if you move this from freehand, it only works in freehand, to the slot where the item is supposed to go, the item disappears. So our armor value is now a bit higher than it was statically. The only thing is this doesn't really work for the dexterity stats, and the actual statistic stats on weapons it doesn't work for. I believe it works for hit, armor, and when welded, all of the resistances, but it doesn't work for anything that denotes like dexterity. So for example, our dex is now at the highest. As you can see, it didn't stay high, but we want the last weapon that we equip to be the two-handed sword, because that crit bonus doesn't seem to transfer to anything else. So we want the final weapon to be the two-handed sword that we use standardly for that bonus. And as you can see, my mana went down because we used that item to equip. So let's just let's go see our undead grandfather, and we enter through. He opens up this door for us for story reasons, and we're going to start what we usually do to complete the game. Okay, so file, load. Oh, hey, this guy. So any undead monsters, I'm just going to basically change since we have it. We have transmogrify monster spells. So up and over, okay. And the lower in the dungeon you get, the harder things become. There's some really bad monsters that get to be in here, and they can really mess us up if I'm not careful. Even with all of our little tricks. Okay. Wrong way. So I basically have a huge amount of life. Don't really have to worry. Save. Let's just use map level again. Oh, that would be why. I'm not over far enough. And we basically have everything that we need to complete the game now. So I'm probably not going to be picking up any spell books or anything. And we got lucky. I might be killing some monsters rather than just leaving them. Oh, hello. So smirking thieves are basically the bane of our existence. They can steal our map level scroll. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be very careful. He didn't steal it. Map level. Ooh. So this is a story room. There's a few of those. It wastes time to get them, but the exit is so close here that we're gonna have to do it. Oh, another lucky one. So something about this game, it tends to generate up and downstairs in similar locations, like pretty much right next to each other. It's just usually they are separated by some walls, essentially. So what you want to do is kind of look for ways around your current environment. And let's, oh, hello. Okay, he stole our potion. So I'm gonna just rest for a little because we're using a lot of mana and we need that. Activate map. Oh, right up. So we're getting pretty lucky. I'm not doing this as fast as I usually would. Oh, same room even. Oh. So this is probably another story room up here. Yeah, we're just gonna avoid them though. Yeah, okay. This is relatively nice so far. Game's being nice to us. Okay, so this room over here is an undead room. It's an undead story room, basically. No text boxes or anything, but some really nasty monsters that we don't want to deal with. Luckily, the exit is right here. The stairs are right here, and we don't have to worry about going there. And first devil of the game. Devils are pretty difficult to deal with, but they're not terribly hard with our setup currently. So as you can see, oh hello. This is a white, so we're gonna transmog him into a specter, which deal a lot of damage, but don't hurt our statistics. Now, worst case scenario, if we do get into a lot of trouble and our stats are totally tanked, then we can go back to town with a Rune of Return, but it's not that bad. So this right here is probably a giant room, considering it's a story room. And just something I want to highlight, these are trap doors. It is possible to get a trap door in this game that goes down 5 floors and that saves a ton of time. But because you have to come back up in a part 2 run, it kind of actually eats a little bit of time because you don't have a dungeon layout for those floors, and you have to use map level scroll again and again and again for that. Theoretically, it would be easier to do in the game, and it could be a faster strat, but it actually, so far at least, oh, and actually, hasn't really worked out in any runs that I've tried it in, and the RNG to do all of this, to actually get trapdoors in specific places, is just a nightmare. There's some wands that'll do it, but again, they're very rare and they're off of very difficult monsters to kill usually, like wizards and necromancers, for example. And it's just, I don't know. I don't think it'll ever actually save a bunch of time unless someone gets struck by lightning lucky. So anyway, let's go back to the run at hand. Ooh, Ice Devil. So these are bad news, but as you can see by our rapidly fading health there. But our setup should deal with them pretty well. So yep, this is a giant room, and you normally don't really want to mess with these guys because they take up a lot of time to kill, but our exit is here and it doesn't make sense to regenerate the floor. Save map. So straight up. So we're getting pretty late into the game. Ooh. And we're starting to get some pretty hard monsters being generated for us, including these guys, which summon each other. Oh, did I go up the wrong place? Yeah. Ooh, search. Oh yay! This guy's the hardest monster in the game, basically. We're gonna try to transmog him, and that worked for us. Yeah, but the guy with the weird nipples, he's pretty difficult. Believe it or not. I think one of my friends used to call them like pepperoni nipple demons or something. I don't know. They're just really wacky character design. That's not Rick Sada. Someone else did the art. Save, activate. Where are we again? We have to go up. Okay. Alright. Oh, let's kill this. Otherwise they follow us around. And they're really fast. So map. Okay, it's in another... Well, let's avoid the giant room. Let's just go straight up here. Because that was a giant room on the map there, and we don't really want to deal with those. Because those take time. Troll. Oh, awesome. Dragon. Okay. So just something about the way that I'm moving. It's technically a little bit faster if you can do it well to use all keyboard and all shortcuts. And for this, I'm just trying to show people what I'm actually doing, so I'm not using as many shortcuts. But yeah. Ooh, vampire. So vampires reduce your maximum health. That doesn't really matter too much to us, but if one starts following you around, you want to kill it, because it could start mattering. You don't want your health to go negative. Okay, cool. Another easy one. So what I do to move around is a combination of keyboard and mouse, and it can achieve similar effects as all keyboard, and it's better than all mouse, but it's not quite the fastest that you can do. It's just a little bit more accurate in my opinion, so that's why I use it. That, and it tends to hurt my hands to do anything else. Okay, so we just killed that weird guy. Alright, so now we're on the final level of the dungeon. We're gonna do scroll of map level, map, and then we are going to, we gotta go up and around and into his room, but that's actually a decent location for the room to spawn. Any dragons on the way? Let's just take a look. Oh, there is one. And there's one green over here, but I don't think we need him. Okay, save. Oh my god, so many of these guys. Okay, perfect. So, save. He's already slightly injured. Heavily injured. critically injured. So luckily our mana was restored and we can do this. Surtur is one of the most annoying, and this guy is the boss character. He is one of the most annoying monsters in the game. If he gets to a certain point at critical health, he will just flee. He will move to another portion of the map. Usually it's like the direct opposite of where you are, so right over here. And he'll just try to disappear and recover health. And he recovers fast. So what we tend to do once he gets down here is we just use the strongest spell that we have, and we keep saving. Yeah, see? So what I'm gonna do, one of the only one of the only monster spells that actually works to change him is the spell Slow Monster, and that because that escape thing seems to be a roll against your character's dexterity, to slow him down means he can't readily use it as much, the escape mechanism that he has. So we're just gonna, there we go, he's dead. But yeah, as soon as he tries to escape, I tend to just use that to keep him in place. So we're gonna put on the Helm. The Helm of Storms actually allows you to detect monsters, just standard. You don't want to deal with any of these. Hopefully we don't run into anything horrible, because we're actually pretty low on life at this point. Save. Ugh, I got messed up there. Okay. So we're pretty low on life. In a bit of danger. Just a bit though. We'll make it out. So now there is a spell called Rune of Return, but they thought of this. The charge is absorbed by the Helm. So once you are wearing the Helm or have the Helm on your person, and you need the Helm to complete the game, you need to take it to your undead grandfather and, give it to him, because that's the story of the game. You are stealing his helmet back from demons because he can't go up and down stairs. It's hard being undead and old. So basically you have to get the helmet and come up with it. Oh dear. No, you don't. You get away from me. I don't want to deal with you. So yeah, the helmet prevents you from using your best go-to-town transportation spell, which makes this part of the game a little bit harder. And trust me, I've attempted to get around it. It seems to be programmed fairly well. Can't seem to get around that trigger there. Okay, dragon. We're just gonna run right through this guy. Don't care about the thief anymore. Nope, not that one. Usually I'm a little bit more careful at which stairs I reveal, so I don't do that kind of thing. And it's just easy to see where I was. Okay. And time now. Well, I messed up on the timer there, but whatever. That's the gist. So yeah, once you hit your grandfather, hit enter twice, and then you are crowned king. I don't know. I guess the helmet is needed for you to be king. No idea. So, yep, that's pretty much it. The game itself is loosely based on Norse mythology, loosely. It's pretty fun. It's pretty easy to learn and pick up, and it's a pretty lenient roguelike, especially part 2 to speedrun, mostly because of all the bugs, but to get really good times, it kind of requires a lot of luck and a lot of RNG. So 39 minutes here is impressive, but not terribly good. And like almost 4 times what my current world record is. So yeah, the game itself holds up pretty well in terms of all the statistic stuff, all of the modern day conveniences of roguelikes. It kind of feels like a ancient turn-based Diablo in some ways, at least with the character of the game. And yeah, it's a fun little game. And in case anyone was wondering what the name Larry is for, it's actually short for Laurentia, which is just something that I and my wife say all the time, a name that we use for stuff, basically. So yeah. But yeah, this is Castle of the Winds, and hopefully this was enough description for someone to kind of pick it up and see what they can do with it. Theoretically, part 2 runs should be able to get to about 10 minutes flat. Part 1 runs probably 5 minutes, I guess. And part 1, 2, probably 20 minutes around. So yeah, there's still some time left in there. It's just the RNG is amazingly difficult at this point, unless some more interesting strategies come to light. So yeah, I think I'll be signing off now.